Your doctor won't say this out loud, but the research already has. Most of what you've been told about memory loss after 60 is incomplete. And that gap in understanding might be costing you more than you realize every single night while you sleep. Here's what I mean. You've probably heard things like, "It's just aging. Take more supplements, do crossword puzzles, stay mentally active." And maybe you've tried all of that. Maybe you take your vitamins religiously. Maybe you read every day, but the forgetting still happens. Names that used to come instantly now take 30 seconds of mental searching. You walk into a room and stop in the middle of it, unable to remember why you came. You reread the same paragraph twice because none of it landed the first time. And somewhere in the back of your mind, maybe you don't say it out loud, there's a quiet fear building. Is this the beginning of something worse? Is this how it starts? Stop, because this problem has a mechanism. And when you understand the mechanism, everything changes. This isn't mainly about age. It's about what happens to your brain, specifically, what stops happening during the hours you sleep. And the most important thing I'll tell you today is this. The food you eat in the evening has a direct, documented, scientific influence on whether your brain does its most critical overnight work. There are 5 specific foods that most people over 60 have never connected to brain health or memory. And after this video, you will never think about your evening meal the same way again. If you know someone who's been quietly worried about their memory, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, share this with them before you keep watching. What you're about to learn is exactly the kind of thing that doesn't come up at a typical doctor's appointment. And it matters. Number 1 on this list is going to surprise you. 2 small fruits. That's it. The entire intervention is 2 kiwis, eaten about 1 hour before bed. And the science behind this is genuinely striking. Researchers at Taipei Medical University set out to study what would happen to sleep quality if participants added kiwi to their evening routine. This wasn't a feeling-based survey where people reported being sleepier. They tracked actual, measurable sleep architecture over weeks. And what they found, consistently across participants, was a significant improvement in both sleep onset, meaning how quickly people fell asleep, and the depth and duration of sleep overall. Not from a pill, not from a medication, from 2 kiwis. Why does this happen? Kiwi contains a combination of nutrients that work synergistically in a way that's rare in a single food. High concentrations of antioxidants, substantial vitamin C, and folate. Together, these compounds reduce oxidative stress and systemic inflammation specifically in the nervous system. And here's why that matters so directly for sleep. Your brain can only transition into deep, slow-wave sleep if your nervous system is in a sufficiently calm, low-inflammation state. When chronic low-grade inflammation is present, which is extremely common in adults over 60, the nervous system stays on a kind of low-level alert. Kiwi helps bring that alert level down. Not through sedation, not through drugs, through the actual biology of anti-inflammation. Think about that. 2 kiwis, 1 hour before bed. That's roughly a 2-minute addition to your evening routine. And the payoff, if it helps your brain actually reach the deep sleep stage where memory consolidation happens, is enormous. Because memory consolidation is everything. Without it, what you experience today doesn't transfer into long-term storage. It just fades. Keep going, because the next food has a number attached to it that's almost hard to believe when you first hear it. Not regular cherry juice, tart cherry juice. The distinction matters because the nutritional profile of tart cherries is fundamentally different from sweet cherries. And it's those specific compounds in tart cherries that drive the effect. A study published in the American Journal of Therapeutics looked specifically at people dealing with chronic insomnia, not occasional trouble falling asleep, but persistent, ongoing sleep problems. These are people who had tried multiple approaches and were still struggling. After drinking tart cherry juice consistently as part of their routine, those participants gained an average of 84 additional minutes of sleep per night. 84 minutes? If you're currently sleeping 6 hours a night, that's the difference between 6 hours and 7.5 hours. That's not a minor adjustment, that's a completely different night. That's crossing a threshold from insufficient sleep to restorative sleep. How does it work? Tart cherries naturally contain melatonin, the same hormone your body produces to regulate your sleep-wake cycle. But they also contain tryptophan, an amino acid that serves as a building block for your body's own production of both serotonin and melatonin. So you're not just adding external melatonin, you're actually supporting your body's ability to produce more of its own. The combination helps reset your biological clock and, critically, helps maintain the deeper stages of sleep for longer periods throughout the night. One important note: tart cherries contain a compound called quercetin, which can interact with blood-thinning medications. If you're currently on any anticoagulant therapy, have that conversation with your doctor before adding this to your routine. It doesn't mean you can't benefit, it means the conversation is worth having. Don't skip it. Tap the like button right now if you're going to try one of these this week. Because number 3 is something you may already have sitting in your kitchen right now. And what it does to quiet the relentless noise in your brain before sleep is remarkable. A small handful, 20 or 30 seeds. That's the entire dose. And the mechanism behind this one gets into brain chemistry in a way that most people find immediately recognizable once they hear it. Pumpkin seeds are one of the most concentrated natural sources of magnesium available in any food. Not one of the better sources, one of the best. And magnesium, it turns out, plays a role in your brain's ability to rest that most people have never been told about explicitly. Here's how it works. Your brain has a neurotransmitter called GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. If your nervous system were a car engine, GABA is the braking system. It's what tells your neurons to slow down their firing rate, reduce their activity, and allow the shift toward rest. Magnesium is critical to activating and sustaining GABA function. When your magnesium levels are insufficient, and research suggests that a significant portion of adults, over 60, are running chronically low, GABA struggles to do its job effectively. Your brain's braking system becomes less responsive. The result is immediately recognizable to a huge number of people. You lie in bed, you're physically tired, but your brain won't stop. It replays conversations from earlier in the day. It runs through tomorrow's to-do list. It circles back to worries you thought you'd let go of hours ago. You're exhausted, but mentally you're still running. Sound familiar? That's not a character flaw. That's not anxiety. That's often a magnesium GABA problem. And a small handful of pumpkin seeds in the evening gives your body what it needs to fix it. The racing slows. The nervous system settles. Your brain finally receives the signal it needs to descend into genuine deep sleep. Not magic, mineral chemistry. And it costs less than $1 a serving. The next two are where the science gets even more remarkable. Don't skip this part. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, romaine. 1 serving per day. Add it wherever it fits. A salad with lunch. Sautéed with garlic at dinner. Stirred into soup. Blended into something smooth. The form doesn't matter as much as the consistency. And here's why consistency over time is the whole point. Rush University's Memory and Aging Project is one of the most significant long-term studies on diet and cognitive health in older adults. Researchers followed nearly 1,000 people across multiple years, tracking their dietary habits and regularly assessing their cognitive function with detailed testing. The finding that stood out from everything else in the study: people who ate just 1 daily serving of leafy green vegetables consistently showed cognitive function that was equivalent to someone 11 years younger than they actually were. Let that land. 11 years. Not 2 years, not 5 years. 11 years of cognitive age difference from one serving of leafy greens per day. That's not a statistical artifact. That's a massive, documented effect from a single dietary habit. What's driving it? 3 primary nutrients: lutein, folate, and vitamin K. Each plays a documented role in protecting neurons from the kind of degenerative processes that accelerate cognitive decline. Your brain cells don't exist in isolation. They're embedded in structural support networks, wrapped in protective layers, connected through insulation that allows signals to travel cleanly and quickly. Lutein, folate, and vitamin K help maintain that infrastructure. As they become deficient, which happens gradually and invisibly, the precision of your thinking erodes. Memory becomes less reliable, processing slows. The degradation is quiet and cumulative, and so is the protection. One practical note: vitamin K has a well-known and significant interaction with blood-thinning medications, particularly warfarin. If you're on those medications, the answer is not to avoid leafy greens. Avoiding them actually creates instability in your levels that makes management harder. The answer is consistency. Eat roughly the same amount of leafy greens each day so your medication can be calibrated accurately. Have that conversation with whoever manages your medication. It's a solvable situation, and it's worth solving. Write in the comments right now, which of these foods do you already eat regularly? Because you might be closer than you think. And then, stay for number 5, because this one connects everything together, and the Harvard research behind it is extraordinary. Half a cup a day, stirred into oatmeal, added to yogurt, eaten as a snack in the afternoon or evening. Or blackberries, or raspberries, or any deeply pigmented berry, because the active compound responsible is what gives these fruits their deep color. Here's the research. Harvard University's Nurses' Health Study is among the longest and largest nutritional research projects ever conducted, tracking the health and dietary habits of tens of thousands of women over multiple decades. When researchers analyzed the data, specifically looking at berry consumption and cognitive aging, the finding was this: women who regularly ate high amounts of berries showed memory aging that was delayed by an average of 2.5 years compared to women who ate fewer berries. 2.5 additional years of cognitive reserve. 2.5 years before, memory function begins to show measurable decline. For something you eat in a bowl with your breakfast. The mechanism behind this is one of the most fascinating things happening in nutritional neuroscience right now. Blueberries and other dark berries contain a class of compounds called anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their deep blue-purple color. Anthocyanins do 2 things in the brain that directly support memory. First, they increase blood flow specifically to the regions of the brain most involved in memory and executive function, the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex. More blood flow means more oxygen, more glucose, more of everything those neurons need to perform. Second, anthocyanins stimulate the production of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Researchers sometimes describe BDNF as fertilizer for the brain, because it directly promotes the growth and strengthening of synapses, the physical connections between neurons where memory is actually stored and retrieved. When BDNF levels are high, synapses grow stronger. Learning becomes more efficient. Memory retrieval becomes quicker and more reliable. When BDNF levels drop, as they do naturally, with aging, stress, and poor sleep, synapses weaken and shrink. Memory becomes harder to access. The words take longer to come. The names get harder to hold. Half a cup of blueberries per day is enough to see meaningful benefit in research studies. That's not a large amount of food. But the return, 2.5 years of delayed cognitive aging, is one of the most compelling pieces of nutritional evidence for brain health in the literature. Now here's what I need to tell you before we finish. Because most people stop at the food list and miss the part that determines whether any of it actually works. These 5 foods are genuinely powerful. The research behind each one is real, but they function inside a larger system, the system of your sleep environment and your daily habits. If that system is working against you, even the best nutritional choices will be limited in what they can deliver. So let me give you the 4 habits that either unlock or block everything else. The first one sounds almost too simple. Fixed sleep schedule, same bedtime, same wake time, every day, including weekends. Your brain's circadian rhythm is a precisely tuned biological timer. When you sleep at variable times, staying up late on Friday, sleeping in Saturday, going to bed early Sunday, you're essentially giving yourself jet lag repeatedly. Your deep sleep stages fragment and shorten, not because of anything you eat, not because of your age, but because the timer never gets to stabilize. Consistency is the foundation. Everything else rests on it. The second habit surprises a lot of people. Cut off caffeine by early afternoon. Not late afternoon, early afternoon. Noon or 1 o'clock. Here's why this matters more than most people realize. Caffeine has a half-life of approximately 5 to 6 hours in most adults. That means 5 to 6 hours after your last cup, half of the caffeine is still active in your system. And that half-life actually gets longer as you age, because your liver's ability to metabolize caffeine slows with time. That 3 o'clock cup of coffee you've been drinking for years? By 10 at night, a substantial portion of it is still circulating. Caffeine doesn't just make it harder to fall asleep, it actively suppresses slow-wave sleep, the deep restorative stage, even when you don't feel its stimulant effects consciously. The suppression happens below your awareness. You fall asleep, you sleep your hours, but you never get as deep as you should. And the cleaning system never runs at full capacity. The third habit is the one that creates the most resistance, because the misconception around it is so deeply ingrained. Avoid alcohol before bed. Alcohol, for many older adults, has been used as a sleep aid for years, decades, sometimes. And it does feel like it helps. It creates sedation. You fall asleep faster. You feel relaxed. But here's what's actually happening. Alcohol disrupts deep sleep architecture, particularly in the second half of the night. You spend the first half of the night in shallow, sedated sleep rather than deep restorative sleep. By the early morning hours, your brain rebounds from the alcohol's sedation and starts producing light, fragmented, easily disturbed sleep. You wake up having slept for 8 hours and still feel tired. That's not coincidence. That's alcohol blocking the exact biological processes that your brain needs most. The glymphatic system the cleaning crew barely runs. The memory consolidation barely happens. You've spent 8 hours in something that looks like sleep but doesn't function like it. The fourth habit is physical environment. Keep your bedroom dark, genuinely dark, not just dimmed and cool. Specifically cooler than the rest of your home. The reason is physiological, not preferential. Your core body temperature needs to drop by 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate the transition into deep sleep. If your bedroom is too warm, your body can't complete that temperature drop efficiently. The transition to deep sleep gets delayed, shortened, or blocked entirely. Darkness matters for similar reasons, light exposure, even through closed eyelids. Suppresses melatonin production and signals to your brain that it might be time to wake up. Your sleep environment is either helping your brain do its most important work, or it's fighting against it. A dark, cool room is not a comfort preference. It is a physiological requirement. Let me bring this together for you completely. Your memory after 60 is not passively declining because time is passing. It is being actively shaped every single night by whether your brain gets the deep. Restorative sleep, it needs to do 2 critical jobs: consolidate the memories of your day into long-term storage, and activate the glymphatic system to flush out the toxic proteins that accumulate and cause structural damage to brain tissue over time. The food you eat in the hours before sleep directly influences how deeply you sleep, and therefore, how well those two jobs get done. 5 specific foods: kiwi, tart cherry juice, pumpkin seeds, leafy greens, and blueberries, each have direct, thus documented, peer-reviewed scientific connections to either sleep quality, brain protection, or both. And 4 daily habits determine whether your biology is even positioned to let those foods work. This is not a complicated program. It does not require expensive supplements, or a new medication, or a complete overhaul of your life. It requires understanding how your brain actually functions and making small, deliberate choices that work with that function rather than against it. That's it. The complexity isn't in the doing, it's in knowing what to do and why it matters. So here is what I want you to do tonight. Just one thing. Look at this list of 5 foods: kiwi, tart, cherry juice, pumpkin seeds, leafy greens, blueberries, and pick one. Just one, not all 5 at once. One. Add it to your evening routine starting tonight, or tomorrow, or this weekend. Make it easy. Make it something you can actually do. And pay attention to how your sleep feels over the following week. Notice if your mind feels a little clearer in the morning. Small changes, applied consistently over weeks and months, produce results that accumulate in ways that genuinely surprise people. The science says so. And your brain, given the right conditions, is more capable of responding than most people over 60 have been led to believe. If this video gave you something useful today, if it shifted your thinking about even one thing, please hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps this reach someone else who needs it just as much as you did.